Old man doing a podcast. Real weirdos. We have English degrees. Real weirdos. We talk about movies for way too goddamn long. So we have a few points of order today. Some delicious hot news for you masses and for you real weirdos. So I saw this morning today that LeBron James has won the Razzie for 2022 Worst Actor. I thought that was fucking hilarious.
For Space Jam, obviously.
Yeah, for Space Jam. I don't think he's prolific in other, like, movies, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but, like, is that fair?
No.
It's not fair. I mean, he's not an actor. Like,
but it's hilarious. But yeah, it's not fair. You're definitely right.
It's great because that's what that movie deserves. That's what that, like, heartless cash grab deserves.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, but to give him a Razzie for being a bad actor, it's like, or worst acting probably, because he's not an actor. But I know it's funny, but it seems like a little unfair. Like, I would have rather given it to, like, I don't know, Chris Pratt in anything.
Chris Pratt was not very good in the Tomorrow War. I saw him. I'm trying to think. That's a good question though. Is like, what was the worst performance of the year? I don't know. I don't generally like watch a lot of new bad movies. I just do the older ones when I subject you guys to things like Christmas with the Cranks and Samurai Cop and stuff.
Yeah, Samurai Cop is not a bad movie.
Nah, I mean it is, but it's not. Everyone knows about Samurai Cop. But another point of order. I was thinking about watching the Oscars this year because I've seen like a lot of the movies. But then I saw that old Amy Schumer was gonna be the host, and I was like, nope, I'm out. See you later.
You know, it's funny because I actually love the Oscars, even with all of their bullshit and glitz and like, I mean, I'm from LA, so maybe I'm like biased and it's like a cultural thing, but I don't know. There's something about the Oscar hate that I feel like I get and I agree with, but I don't know what it is anymore. Like, I just like to watch them because it's the only like celebration of film and movies that we have in this country that is like somewhat legitimate, I guess you could say.
Cannes.
Yeah, but Cannes, isn't that French? Isn't that like a French film festival?
Yeah,
okay.
It is.
Well, there you go then.
So, like, I appreciate all the European fucking accolades and whatnot, but, like, the Academy Awards are, like, there are some films that when they win the Oscar, I'm like, yes, because I wanted it to. But then there are other years where I'm just like, no, fuck all these movies or something. So it's hard for me just because it's, like, the only legitimate, and I feel like the only, like, standardized award show that I care about. I don't give a fuck about the Golden Globes. I like Emmys because it's TV, you know, but
it's a publicity thing, you know, like like when we were talking about when we were doing Parasite way back when, it was great that Parasite won an Oscar because it was great that a Korean director was succeeding so strongly in the American market. So when movies that deserve recognition get that recognition through the Oscars, that makes them valuable because now he can go on and do other great movies because he has this kind of thing, this accolade on his resume. But it's not really, I think, the Oscars as far as a show. I mean, the show's boring. Who cares? Yeah. But I think it's just more like the hate is towards the Academy and like just the systemic destruction of the movie industry that they have been responsible for. Like the racial bias, the gender bias. Like, the Academy has gatekept so many amazing directors and actors from succeeding because of their agenda.
Yeah, they're doing like a massive overcorrection this year by having, I think the hosts are Wanda Sykes and Amy Schumer, maybe another one. Nothing against Wanda Sykes.
Just both really unfunny comedians. Like,
yeah,
it's just like, we're just going to have two
yeah.
unbelievably unfunny comedians.
It's like, okay, here's my thoughts on the Oscars. I think they're kind of interesting because, not because I put any stock in them. It's like, oh, my movie didn't win or whatever, although it is cool, especially when something like Parasite wins. And we talked about that because it is putting a really amazing artistic film that people might not have seen or might not have like permeated the consciousness and blowing it up. And I think that when it does that, it's really cool. But more so, it just shows me movies that might be really good from the year. They might be, might not be, but it's movies to check out. And generally, you have a standard of quality. But I don't care who wins or anything like that, because I know there's like a lot of lobbying. It's almost like winning a political race. But when you have somebody like Amy Schumer, it's like, I don't want to hear her talk about movies. I love movies. That's going to make me like movies less.
And it's like, to make this clear, like, you know, Amy Schumer is a joke thief. And she has stolen she has stolen a lot of material from a lot of different comedians. And that is, in my world, in my worldview, just unforgivable to steal someone's content and their work. So she's a thief, and Wanda Sykes, you know, has kind of just fallen off. Like, these two irrelevant characters somehow are getting thrust into the spotlight of the Oscars, and everyone's gonna feel that awkwardness.
Who's the third one? Let me look this up.
Why comedians? To be honest, like, I know Bob Hope had his run, and like, you know, comedians generally are like very sociable, and they can like say things off the cuff, and they can like kind of handle things like with aplomb. But to be honest, dude, I would rather have someone like he's a comedian, but I would rather have like Conan host, because he's also a talk show host, and like, I just want someone to see someone swiftly pass along the ceremony. Fuck, I could have even taken someone like Alex Trebek. Like, I just don't care about the host as much, and that turned into its own like little focus way back.
Like Billy Crystal.
Yeah, like fucking, I just don't give a fuck who hosts.
Regina Hall. Who's Regina Hall?
Sounds familiar. Well, it's like, you know, Ricky Gervais did the Golden Globes for a few years. Those years were the highest viewed years of the Golden Globes, just because everyone wanted to hear Ricky Gervais tear celebrities apart.
Yeah.
Isn't that indicative of how much people don't like you? Is that the only reason they're going to watch is if you hire someone to insult you? So it's like, if the Oscars want to get some viewership, dude, put Burr as a host.
Bill Burr would be amazing.
Bill Burr still respects Hollywood to a level, because he's an actor, and he won't say too much to, like, I guess, make the Oscars not want to choose him. But goddamn, would he fucking kill? Would he just be so sarcastic and be pointing out all of the hypocrisy, but at the same time being like, all right, next, it would just be so perfect.
He would have the right amount of reverence and the right amount of just like sardonic evisceration.
It would be perfect. He could perfectly balance tearing everybody apart while still not like breaking up the status quo, like not making people feel too uncomfortable, which I think the Oscars is worried about. Whereas in Ricky Gervais was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I will say whatever I want, and I don't think the Oscars want that.
It's like, this movie is so long that by the end of it, Leo's girlfriend was too old for him.
I love that Leo,
damn.
Leo was such a good sport with that joke.
Yeah, he laughed. He knows. Yeah. He knows. Oh, he knows. Who do you want to win this year, though, Alex? Who are you rooting for? Who do you have money on at the bookies?
Oh, dude, I haven't even looked at the nominees. No, I mean, I like just kind of going into it. My favorite are like the foreign film selections, because like you said, it like shows me some quality film that I could get into. I love the shorts. I love the animated films, but I have no idea I mean, West Side Story is probably nominated, right?
Yeah. We'll just make this episode. We'll make this episode Oscar talk and the movie. So we've got Nightmare Alley. That's the new Del Toro movie. Guillermo Del Toro movie.
Okay.
I thought was incredibly disappointing. I saw it.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
I wasn't a big fan. Really good filmmaking and acting, but the story was just very predictable and didn't do much. You have Don't Look Up with Leo.
Didn't see that. That was a Netflix movie, right?
This is a Netflix movie about you know, global warming or a comet or whatever.
Yep.
You have Dune. Dune is on there.
That's mine.
You got a Japanese film called Drive My Car. You got Belfast. Belfast is good. Kenneth Branagh, one of his non-bad movies. Kenneth Branagh is weird. He makes really good movies and really bad movies. It's really strange. Licorice Pizza by Paul Thomas Anderson, which I haven't seen yet. I don't know. I don't know why.
I think we've all been kind of like subconsciously thinking we're gonna save it for an episode.
Yeah, because like
we
have to.
I need to watch it.
All Paul Thomas Anderson fans, it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, this is some of our most viewed content is the Paul Thomas Anderson stuff.
And Man on Fire.
And Man on Fire.
So we should do all Denzel movies too.
Yes,
by
all
that
the
logic.
Denzels. The Power of the Dog, starring Jeff's favorite Cumberbatch.
It's not my favorite.
Oh, Benadryl. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just,
He's good in like two
saying
things. Like, okay, I was like, where did that come from?
You mean Doctor Strange and Avengers 2?
Oh
right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you know how much.
West
I love
Side
those.
Story, of course. Yeah, King Richard, which is some fucking like biopic starring Will Smith. I don't know about the Serena sisters, the Williams sisters.
I was gonna say, is that the tennis one?
Yeah, it's the tennis one about their dad. And Coda, which is a movie.
It's a Led Zeppelin album.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely Dune. That's my pick. Easy. And if Green Knight can fudge its way in there somehow.
Nah, no way. That's not nominated. Pig wasn't nominated. Tragedy Macbeth wasn't nominated.
So many snubs.
I mean, Denzel was nominated.
Denzel was nominated, I think. I'm going to say my pick is Licorice Pizza. I haven't even seen it yet.
I actually heard that it's very like divisive amongst Paul Thomas Anderson fans. Like,
Yeah, I've heard
there's
the
like
same.
it's a very big departure from his usual style.
Well, we might end up in a situation, Alex, similar to when we reviewed The French Dispatch, where we expect to love it and are like, I don't know.
Who are the best directors or like screenplay? Those ones I care about a lot too.
Let's see here. Why are they at the bottom? International feature film, screenplay. Which ones did you want? Director.
David Fincher's nominated for Mank.
Nice.
That would be a few years ago.
Oh.
No, it says.
You're looking at the wrong year.
Oh
there,
no,
buddy.
you're right. He got nominated in 2021. Sorry, I forgot which year we were in, people.
Last 2 years of a haze.
We have the directors of The Power of the Dog and Drive My Car. You have Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza, Kenneth Branagh for Belfast, and Stevie Spielberg for West Side
So
Story.
the exact same fucking movies that are nominated, just their directors. Great.
Usually.
Great.
I mean, that's usually how
That
it
doesn't make
goes.
any sense.
Right? But they made the best movies, right? Why wouldn't the best movies be made by the best
Yeah,
directors?
no, that's not true. The best director could have a half-decent director with a good crew could still make a really great movie that's worthy of an Oscar nom.
I could see Barry Lyndon winning Best Director, but not getting nominated for like Best Picture.
I could see Barry Lyndon winning like Best Picture to like show to your grandma on
Here
her
we
deathbed.
go. Uh-huh.
Best Cinematography for sure.
Best cinematography for sure. Yeah.
He really zooms out.
I know. He's like, now press the zoom button.
And that's cinematography. Setting that camera on a tripod and then slowly zooming out with a remote. Fucking mind blowing.
Yeah, Jeff not a big fan of a classical Barry Lyndon, but a big fan of to draw us back to the focus of this episode, Kung Fu Panda 3?
Yep, that's what
Kung Pao Enter the
Nope.
Fist. Kung Fury.
No,
Kung Fu Jungle.
I wish. That sounds interesting. Kung Fu Jungle?
That's a movie.
It's a dude just going through the jungle, like, just fighting all the animals.
I don't know. It's a movie I have on my list and I forgot what it is. So maybe we'll do that. I don't know. Just see what it is first.
It's an actual movie?
It is an actual movie.
Yeah. It's like, it's just Kung Fu Jungle. Like, I'm imagining it played very straight. Like, all the animals are just trained animals, and a guy's just going through, like, punching the shit out of them.
Oh, this is why I found it. It has Donnie Yen in it. So that's how I found it.
He's Ip Man, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
A martial arts instructor from the police force gets imprisoned after killing a man by accident. But when a vicious killer starts targeting martial arts masters, the instructor offers to help the police in return for his freedom. So, it's not taking place in a jungle, unfortunately.
Well, then they should be arrested. for false advertising because I was excited about Kung Fu in a Jungle.
Yeah, me too. This just sounds like a bog standard kind of like, I don't know, city Kung Fu movie.
Yeah.
But today, welcome back to the Reel Weirdos. We're 2.5 white men with English degrees talk about movies for way too goddamn long. Today, after an extended intro, we're talking about Kung Fu Hustle, 2004 film from director Stephen Chow, I believe.
Stephen Chow.
I accidentally clicked off the IMDb page to go to Kung Fu Jungle.
We got the trifecta here, the great trifecta, actor, star, and director. That's the triple threat.
Actor, and star. You mean writer?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Actor,
Actor, writer, director.
He is the star of the show. And Jeff, you had us watch Kung Fu Hustle.
I did.
Tell me why.
Tell me why. The main reason was because Alex had not seen this movie. And I think it's just like one of those movies that even if you don't like it, I think you should still see it because it's just so fun and silly and fun to like take a minute to divorce yourself from reality and delve into this really weird noir Kung Fu world. It's so unique to itself. Like it's a Chinese movie. It was produced and made, I believe, in China and released to American audience. And it's such a divergence from the normal Kung Fu that it becomes parody. It becomes satire. It becomes making fun of all of these really gritty, serious Kung Fu movies and boiling them down to more and more progressively ridiculous fight scenes and antics. And I don't know. And the second reason was because we have been in a bit of a pit as far as content. We've been really going deep in Come On was a little bit of a lift up, but for the most part, I thought this movie would kind of put a smile on all our faces.
You mean a pit in terms of not like content-wise, but like just we're doing really serious films.
Yeah, just this like pit of like whoa and like breaking down intense scenes and just really like feeling. It's like, I was going to choose a movie that's just like, let's smile, laugh, hour and a half in and out, and then it's just like have some fun and then bring it all back down with Jesse's pick.
Yeah, we're bringing it way back down into weirdo land.
Yep.
For my pick, Titan, baby, but that'll be next week. Yeah, you're right. It's a spoof movie. It's essentially a spoof movie. It's a really well done spoof movie. But before I jump into my thing, I want to hear Alex. Alex, what'd you think of Kung Fu Panda?
Well, I love that movie, but I love this movie too.
I see Jeff shaking his head there.
I mean, this movie, like Jeff said, it's not like they're not trying to do anything like, I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I don't have the words to do it. So I'm just going to say this movie was never made to be like a good movie. It's not like Crouching Tiger or like House of Flying Daggers where it's like a serious,
I love that one.
Oh, they're great movies.
Hero.
But this movie was so fucking fun. And this movie is fucking hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I mean, it is a comedy, obviously, with like a little bit of like action, not a little bit, excuse me. This movie I thought was fucking hilarious. I thought it turned like the Kung Fu genre on its head in a good way and in a subtle way that, like you said, it's a spoof movie, but in the best like possible. It's indulgent, it's self-referential, but like to the whole genre of Kung Fu. And I don't know, it does it so well. And yeah, I really liked it. And I'm glad it was the first time I watched this movie. Also, this movie made fucking a ton of money.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was pretty successful.
No, it was released. I was talking to Jesse about this before the podcast. It was released during when China was being inundated by kung fu movies. They were just producing them left and right, and this was kind of like made as like a response to that, like almost a breath of fresh air in this sea of intense kung fu movies.
Yeah, this film came out. I was in high school at the time, in my little high school days, and I don't remember exactly where we saw it, but it sort of resonated. Like people in high school were talking about this movie, and that's when I first saw it, which is interesting. And I couldn't remember. I don't think I had seen it since then. Maybe I saw it again like 12 years ago or something, but it's been out for almost 20 years. So revisiting it, it was. Oh boy, is this movie kinetic, ridiculous, and dumb. This movie is dumb. And so, okay, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was well done, like, for what it was doing. I definitely had some problems with it, but I almost feel like a stupid asshole trying to, like, analyze it in any kind of, like, meaningful, like, English major way.
Yep.
But if there are flaws, though, and there are flaws that drew me out of it, like, going into the second half especially, where the characterization and narrative flow had some problems. I didn't know what the central character was until, like, I mean, I sort of saw where it was going, but the movie didn't do a whole lot to signpost that or to, like, make a plot out of it, really. It's very disconnected, very disjointed. It's more about, like, being a Looney Tunes movie than telling a plot a lot of the time. And the characters were very thin, and motivations were largely non-existent except for the shoehorned in, like, character arc of the main guy.
Yeah.
But does this matter is the question, and I guess that depends on you.
Well, it's not about does it matter or not. I would like I said before, I view this as less of a movie and more of a stage performance, a play. You know, you have these settings. You have, like, the city, you can almost see it on the script, like, setting, city streets at night, lights glowing. Like, you know, they have these sets that feel very disconnected from reality. You have, like, the Pigsty Alley, and that's a set that you keep going back to over and over again. And then you have, like, the city streets where they're all crouching, where the two main characters, the goofs, like, hang out in the little, like, traffic light on the top. Like, that's a setting. And then you have, like, the club where, like, the casino where all the gang members hide out, and, like, that's a setting. And so it's, like, almost like the curtain is dropped and then picked back up again, and you have, like, this setting, this play set that you're familiar with, and all these characters and choreography. And this movie is so beautifully choreographed, like, to a huge degree, like, so many extras involved, especially with, like, the Axemen and the way they move, and it's just so fun. It recognized its own faults and decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to, Stephen Chow's almost like, that's not the point. I'm going to go and make a movie that will make people smile from ear to ear from the first, like, second to the last closing. And yeah, it does progressively get more Looney Tunes. Like, the final fight is, like, almost something straight out of, like, Space Jam, like the first one or something like that. Like, him coming down with the Buddhist fists and he's, like, on fire and shit. It's like Dragon Ball Z. But I will say, I don't think I've seen a movie that has a stronger opening than the opening of this film. Pretty much everything from the beginning, and then, like, them coming into Pigsty Alley and getting into a big fight, and then the Axemen coming. Like, I consider that whole thing the intro to this movie.
You mean, like, the introduction of Pigsty Alley and, like, the baker and all the characters and stuff like that?
The main characters wander in, and then the Axemen, and you find out they're all, like, they have 3 kung fu fighters there that are just kind of under the guise of everyday people. And it's just,
right.
It's a very...
It takes a while for you to see that, though. Like,
yeah.
that they're kung fu dudes.
I mean, I think all of this is kind of put in through the first, like, 30 minutes of the movie. Not even, like, first, like, 20 minutes.
I mean, it's 98 minutes long. It's pretty, like, tight. And, like, I liked how the movie was moving along.
Yeah, it doesn't waste your time. It doesn't try to overly expose, like, do, like, a lot of exposition on a really, like, loose and thin story. Like, they don't try to, like, tell you the history of the gangs or the history of this world. It's just this weird, super noir Chinese gang world, and you're just supposed to kind of, like, remove yourself from reality and kind of immerse in the utter ridiculousness. But then they still are being very true to kung fu. Like, all the kung fu is so brilliantly choreographed, obviously done by masters or highly proficient students.
Hell yeah.
Like,
yeah,
the kung fu is on point. So it's like, it's a parody, but at the same time, they're still respecting the martial art of kung fu, which is great.
Yeah. And I like how, so I feel like we have to talk about another movie we reviewed, in Blade of the Immortal. Like, I kept thinking of that film when I was watching this one, just in terms of style and, like, the kinetic energy that they had. This one is obviously a little, like, lighter in tone, where Blade of Immortal was, It acknowledged too that it was kind of stylistic and lighter.
It acknowledged its camp elements, but it was still
exactly.
like incredibly brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, and like solemn and serious, where this is like a good time. But the director, to bring it back to your guys' thing about Looney Tunes, he was talking in this interview about how he was getting bored of just like the basic kinetic motions and movement of kung fu movies, where he was just like, it's all the fucking same. You walk into a restaurant, some guy throws a dish or something, and it's like their limbs and everything. He was like, I'm just done with that. So the scene where the landlady was chasing after me, he's like, everyone was like, that looks like the Roadrunner from Looney Tunes when he's like running. And he goes, that's where I got my inspiration. He's like, I used to read comic books and watch cartoons, like American cartoons, all day. And he's like, I still do. And that's where he drew the inspiration for a lot of like the kinetic choreography and like movement, which it makes sense. Like Blade of the Immortal, and we talked about the translation to like from anime medium to film.
Yeah.
You kind of see like the same thing here, just with a little Looney Tunes like twist to it.
God, I love you, Alex. Like fucking, you're so right. Like and I love that you gave that context. That's so great. Thank you for doing that, because it's like a Western noir comic book, but Chinese. It's so weird. It's like, because noir, like Chinese noir, is not something that I'm very familiar with, you know. And
I have to say, I don't understand what you're meaning by noir in this context. Can you like unpack that a little bit?
Well, noir is a setting. It's like this kind of 50s, 60s, you know, the big wide brim hats, the kind of stylistic, like hyper neon lighting, the jazz backgrounds, like the weird, like the muted trumpets.
I always just associate it with like more of a dusky environment than like a hyper environment. You know what I mean? Like tonally.
Yeah, that's the point, is that this movie is taking everything that is serious and turning it on its head and making it funny. So
Gotcha.
Noir, which is serious and intense and dusky, it's like, no, let's make it silly and bright and funny and goofy with like these ugly girls in pretty clothes who think they're pretty, and like, you know, it's like everything, and like a lot of like playing with like gay themes, which Chinese movies never even like tried to touch before. So you have like two very flamboyant gay, one is the one of the kung fu fighters, the guy with the iron
old
fist, yeah, and then the other is the young guy who's like shampooing his hair, and then like the water got turned off and he's got his pants halfway down the whole movie, and like when they're giving him a haircut, he like looks at his bare ass and looks back up at him, and he's like, you know, it's like this whole these weird concepts that they just keep turning, and it makes the movie so fucking lovable, because it's like you realize that there's nothing to be taken serious here. All the analytical shit in your brain, turn it off, and just have a good time.
See, I think maybe that's my problem with it, is maybe I'm unable to do that. Because like I said, I think this is a good movie. I think it's really well done and does exactly what it sets out to do. And I think it deserves the adulation that it has received, both critically and from the audiences, and monetarily. Like you said, it was a very successful film. I had trouble watching it this time, I think because it got too silly and I didn't have enough to connect with in terms of like a character or a storyline. And when it got like to super ridiculous levels of silliness, I kind of tuned out. And I think like I prefer something like Blade of the Immortal, where it's a little more grounded, or in terms of this, like in terms of like action comedy, I'm a bigger fan of something like Jackie Chan, because that still feels grounded, right? And it's still like telling a story. And it's hard to like say that it's hard to like level this as like a really serious criticism, I guess, to draw back to what I said again earlier. But I did find it somewhat uninvolving this time around. I just have to say that the second half especially like felt really long to me.
So I have like a concept that's gonna seem pretty thin. I'm gonna stretch it pretty thin. But there's something similar to me about, like, you brought up Jackie Chan, and his kung fu movies were like legendary because that main character I don't know. People could connect to this like weird, whimsical main character on the screen more than they could to someone like Bruce Lee when he was doing his kung fu movies. And the focus of kung fu movies at the onset was to film and choreograph the fighting, the kung fu, right? Whenever I think of this and the way that they try to have been like, no, I actually want to make a good movie, but it's also a kung fu movie. I always think of fucking Burt Reynolds' character in Boogie Nights, where he's like, this is a real film. I'm making a real film. Like porn, the focus is the porn, it's the sex. But in the 70s and the 80s, there was like this movement to kind of be like, well, we can kind of try and make it relatable. We can try and kind of like give them something to connect to. And kung fu movies, I feel like, have gone along the same kind of like path. There are other movies and genres that are like that, where the focus is like just that one thing. Like war movies were just like shoot 'em up, throw the Nazi through the window, we're done. And now it's more just like, we're going to tell a story and everything like that. So this movie maybe suffers from like focusing a little too much on like the action part of it. But again, because at the onset it sets itself up as that type of movie, I don't know. I just feel like I'm like, okay, this is like a kung fu movie with a little bit of story thrown into it. So that the main focus for me is the experience of watching it. But I get what you're saying, Jesse. Like, I don't know. It's hard. What is his name? The main character, Sing? Is it Sing?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's Sing. Yeah, Sing. I don't know. I've seen this movie 40 times. I know none of the characters' names.
Right? Like, you don't really connect to those characters. You're just like, this shit is cool to watch.
I had a thought, though, before Jeff moves us on. Do you think that Lars von Trier is the ultimate incarnation of Burt Reynolds' character in Boogie Nights?
I don't know.
You see what I'm saying?
Like, sorta.
He's making like really high-minded pornography now with things like Antichrist and Nymphomaniac.
I don't know. I could just see Willem Dafoe with this little like headband and his shirt off in like a backyard of a pool party. Just be like, no, I'm fucking ready now. It's like, it's my dick. I'm ready to go.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's great. Oh man. No, so I was just wanted to respond to you, Alex, because like, and to you, Jesse, I think that what this movie does so successfully is that it is so ridiculous and campy and yet still can be tight and fun to watch. And that is, in my mind, an accomplishment of itself. If you think about it, like a lot of the times people try to do shit like this. They try to take higher-minded concepts or just movies that have a big following and they try to distill them down into something more silly and fun. And they, to my world, always fail. It's always either insulting to the original medium or just not funny and it doesn't make any sense or like out of touch. But this movie seems to be able to be silly, be satirical, and still be a good kung fu movie. And I think that in itself is a really great accomplishment.
Yeah, so that brings up an interesting point. That's more of a broader point about what quantifies as like a good spoof movie. Because I would say this is a spoof movie, but there is a gamut, right? You have like things that are really well done, like the first Austin Powers movie, in my opinion. Especially when you buttress that against things like I don't know, like
Scary Movie
Date
3.
movie, Scary Movie 3, Disaster Movie, all those movies that are just complete garbage, like absolute garbage. It's just references thrown at the screen ad nauseum for like there's no like jokes in them.
Yeah, it's just like, look at this person.
This movie simultaneously functions as a spoof movie and as its own like legitimate piece of art. For the problems that I have with it, I think it's incredibly well done, right? For however like uninvolving I thought it could be at times, that's just like me, right? I don't consider that generally like a fault of this movie, because I think you guys are right in that it's not meant to be that. You have to look at the intent of a film sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really great point. Like, this film is successful because it understands what makes spoof movies unsuccessful. And I think Stephen Chow really did his research and did his homework when he was thinking about how do I approach a really well-loved genre in my home country, let alone across the whole world. I mean, everyone loves kung fu movies to a certain degree. Even if like you just like passively have seen a couple, they're fun.
Yeah, if you don't, get out of here.
But it's like, so to be able to do that in your own home country and do it in a way that's so like funny. Like I love that the movie is the main character. If that makes any sense. It's very strange, but the setting, the aesthetic, the axe gang, and then the beast. And the beast is like one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
He's so funny, but we'll get to that. But it's like, it's almost like the whole revolving weird noir world that this is the character. And you care about everybody and nobody at the same time. It's so weird. I can't describe it in any way that's like less vague than that. There's just a well-rounded, loving nature to this world that I'm like, oh yeah, I want these kung fu guys to succeed and beat the bad. I almost feel like a little kid watching like a Saturday morning cartoon.
It is very reverential of the source material, which is the genre, right? It's doing its play on the genre, but it's also reverential. It's not just like, hey, look at this stupid genre. You know, you can tell there's a genuine love for it there. You have all the wacky, not just in the level of the kung fu itself, which is very well done, but in terms of like, and I love this in any movie. I loved this in Blade of the Immortal as well, where it's like you have bosses, right? These boss characters like who are masters, and they're masters in different ways, who have these different techniques, and like, oh, you have this technique. I've never seen it done. I've heard the legends. I fucking love that shit. I don't
Jesse
know if
should
growing
watch
up,
anime.
I was literally about to say, I don't know if that's from growing up watching anime, but
Yeah,
probably is, because that is the most anime thing ever.
Yeah, that's the biggest anime trope ever. Is like you got the main character, you have like the 5 underbosses, then the 3 big bosses, and then the 1 big boss, and that's just like how those work.
And I don't watch anime anymore very much at all, but I love it when I see movies that do that, because it brings me back into that zone where I'm like, yes.
The acting is really great in this movie. However silly it is, everyone really leans into their role. They really make it theirs. They make it feel tangible in an intangible world, which is really cool, I think. Like when you have such a fun fantasy world, yet these characters feel very like grounded at times, like when they're all hunched over smoking. And it's like all the vagrants, and all they do is like hunch over and sit there and smoke. And like there's like picking up cigarette butts off the ground that other people throw and stuff. It's like there's a level of like grounded poverty there where you see like a class system.
Maybe like 2%. I don't know.
I like that stuff because it's like a respite. It's a break from the chaos, because you just have like a little moment where they're just talking and it doesn't feel crazy anymore. It just feels normal.
See, to me, there was a little bit of tonal disparity there, where when you have like grounded moments and then you go 5 minutes later into Looney Tunes land, there's a disconnect. There's definitely a disconnect that happens in my brain.
So I have a question for you guys. It's hard to frame this though. What is more bold in your opinion, and do you think it's harder to execute when you take a genre like Kung Fu to make a serious Kung Fu movie, which has been made, hundreds of times over? Do you think that is more bold, or do you think it's more bold to do what Chow did here and to try and like actually make a comedy? Because I feel like comedy is hard to execute well, and I don't know. I'm not saying which one do you guys think would be better, but which one do you think is a braver choice?
I mean, you know where I'm going. I think this to do this film and do it the way Stephen Chow wanted to and executed it exactly and didn't care if it seemed dumb or silly, I think that's a lot braver than just making another run-of-the-mill good kung fu movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would have I hate to do this. I would have preferred a really straight good kung fu movie, just where I was last night. But in my brain. But it is definitely harder to make a good comedy, especially like an action comedy, right? That's what makes Jackie Chan so amazing, like in those like 90s, early 2000s movies. It's just so it's very, very difficult, I think. And like I said earlier, to do it with the reverence that he clearly has for the genre in this film, I think it's like pretty well balanced in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Because if you had failed with this movie, it would have been fucking embarrassing.
Yeah,
oh my
right?
god.
That would have been like a career ender almost.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that people like hell hath no fury more than a movie audience that doesn't think something is funny. Right? If they don't like a drama movie, okay, that was too slow, which wasn't my cup of tea. But when you go to see a movie that's like trying to be funny, or is a comedy and it's not, I get at least more. I get like filled with rage. I'm like, this sucks.
Oh, it's like bombing at a comedy show. It's like going to see a comedian and then he bombs. And it's like the reason the audience is so hostile when a comedian bombs is because they all came here to laugh. And then the comedian did not provide that. So they're like, the fuck, dude? And that's why bombing is so fucking mortifying.
This is exactly why I'm not going to watch the Academy Awards starring Amy Schumer.
Like if some dude's doing a dramatic reading of a monologue from like Shakespeare, I would think in my head like, wow, this is really cringy. If he sucked, right? I would be like, this is cringy, this sucks, but I'm not going to be like angry about it. I'm just going to be like, oof, I want this to be over for this guy. But then the comedy thing, I'm just like, no, I'm supposed to be laughing. Like, you promised me the opposite reaction of anger, and now I'm just falling into this pit like of anger. So
I fully agree. When comedy movies don't succeed, they are the most reviled, I think. Like, yeah, definitely.
Well, you can have an okay action movie. You can have a bad action movie, and it can be like interesting on levels. You can have a poorly done drama. There is something special about a bad comedy, where it is just absolutely 100% miserable, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like a Forgetting Sarah Marshall or one of those movies, you know, like those rom-coms or like just those like where it's not funny. So why the fuck am I here?
It's nothing worse than bad comedy.
I think it makes the purchase of the ticket or whatever, you know, the purchase of the stream so much more. Like that $5 becomes $500 just because of how much you feel insulted by the film. You're like, you owe me money, motherfucker.
Right.
Like, you pay me for watching that piece of shit. So I definitely agree, Alex.
Do you guys have a favorite scene or sequence in this film?
God, I'm gonna let you guys go first because I have to legitimately think.
I mean, I love the Roadrunner chase. I love, I don't know her name. What's her name? The cigarette lady with the hair curlers.
The landlady.
Forgive me.
The landlady.
Yeah, it's landlady because I'm not going to try to pronounce Chinese names.
She was probably my favorite character. A lot of the scenes that she was in, I really liked. For some reason, I liked I thought that my favorite fight scene was the casino?
Yes, the casino scene with the two of the landlords fighting the beast. So hilarious.
That's probably my favorite scene. That was when I was like all in, and I was like, this movie's fun.
I'd probably have to say the beginning, like the very beginning, where you have when the Axe Gang is introduced. I think that's probably my favorite scene because you have like it sets the tone for the movie so fucking beautifully. Because like it starts as a serious kung fu movie, like you see this cop getting his ass kicked by a gang leader, and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. Like we're in traditional kung fu territory, and then you get outside, and then all of a sudden it leans into Axe Gang comes, and you have the loud big band music playing, and they're like dancing and moving and gyrating with their axes, and they're like doing this big choreograph thing, and then like they all come forward, like the guys with Tommy guns like come forward out of the front line of guys. Like it's just so beautifully choreographed, and I loved it. And I like the boss, Brother Sum. I love with his fucked up teeth, and he kind of always talks like this. You know, he has that like drawl at the end of his voice.
When the movie began, and I couldn't remember this movie at all, I thought it was gonna be more of a violent, like, but I thought it was gonna be more violent, like more bloody, and definitely high octane. But I thought it would just, I don't know exactly. I thought it would be very quickly paced, brutal, and ridiculous. But I wasn't quite prepared for it to be like schlock, you know. So I was kind of taken by surprise on that regard. I expected Leslie Nielsen to show up.
I was gonna say, you're not a big trailer watcher, right, Jesse?
Sometimes. Not really, though. Especially not with, like, older movies, no.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I love trailers. I've always loved previews and shit like that. So, like, I'll always watch a trailer for a film. Unless you guys instruct me not to, just to go into it, like, blind.
They spoil the whole movie nowadays. And, like, I'm like, oh, okay. I just watched the movie.
Yeah,
you know?
So I mean, like, when I watch the trailer, it's kind of like the abstract at the beginning of like a science research paper.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, for some reason, it helps me slip into like the world of the movie so much better when I'm like, okay, the trailer is like literally what they're trying to sell, right? So they're like, I'm like, okay, I'll do this.
Sometimes sometimes it was really weird though, like they wouldn't know how to market a movie. Like Fight Club is a really great example of this. So the trailer played up like, oh, it's macho guys fighting starring Brad Pitt and look at his muscles, and you're like, that's not what the movie's about at all. But they just didn't know how to market it. So I think sometimes you're right. Yeah, it depends who has final cut of the trailer and who has artistic like license to make the trailer. If it's the studio and they don't know how to market a film, then you can get the Fight Club trailer, which is vastly unrepresentative of what the product is, you know. Although with something like this movie, it's pretty fucking obvious how you market it, right? So you're probably not going to go wrong like figuring out what the tone of Kung Fu Hustle is by looking at the trailer. You're not going to be like, oh, what's this serious romantic drama? Like, no.
Yeah, well, I think to Alex's point, I mean, that's the reason trailers were made initially, were like to slip you into the world and kind of lube up your brain for what
they're made to get you in the theater.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they're made to make you attracted to the movie. But I think that's a great thing to watch a trailer before seeing a film, because it almost like lubes your brain up for the insertion of the movie. You know, like you're like, okay, I know what to expect now. I know the tone that I'm going to. So you're not like unpleasantly surprised, which then can color your rest of the take. And then to respond to your Fight Club thing, like, I think they did that because I remember seeing the Fight Club trailer and being like, what the fuck? And I had already read the book. So I think that when they did the Fight Club, they already knew they had the book audience. So they were like, all right, we got to get like the machismo. We got to get the other group of people that won't come see this movie if they know it's like a high-minded drama. And so they like make it all like fighting, and then you get the guy. And then they already paid for the ticket.
Yeah, it's hard because like when 300 came out, it had that like vibe where like all these dudes I knew who were like into fighting and were like super jocks and like broed out all the time were like, oh, this movie's fucking amazing. It's my favorite movie. Like, I want to get a tattoo. You know, this is Sparta, whatever. Fucking such bullshit. And I was always thinking to myself, like, do you know what the people look like that like wrote that comic? Like the people who create all of this material for you guys, do you know what they look like?
They look like me and Jeff.
Yeah, like they're like gooby nerds.
They sit inside all day.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's like the nerds write the films for the like machismo dudes. Like they're like a bunch of goofy nerd like history nerds. We're like, hey, let's take the 300 story and make it for big cheeseheads. Like that's just like that's a good. But like I like the first 300 movie as far as just like a action film.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Oh,
the second one is hot dog shit.
I haven't even seen it.
I remember it being watchable, and I forgot every frame of it. I like Eva Green. She was in it.
Yeah, she was all right.
I remember that. I don't know if she was good in it or not. I'm just saying I like
was
her.
She was in
She's
the film.
a good actress.
Yeah, I mean, but I think like to wrap up my feelings on this film, I don't know about you guys.
Well, you don't want to talk about it for another 40 minutes?
I don't think that's necessary, especially a movie like this. I think this film is super successful in its intention, really successful in every single aspect of what it's trying to do, whether it's choreography, of the fights, of the dancing, of the music, whether it's acting, direction. It all just checks the boxes. I wouldn't call it schlock. I would call it a spoof movie. And spoof movies in general kind of sit in their own like pre-schlock category, but I still wouldn't give this movie like the schlock grade personally.
It rides the line for me a little bit. I think I liked it less than you two. My favorite scene, I didn't do my favorite scene or sequence. This is fine. It's actually, this is going to be so douchey, but it's like just the little moments where she sees the lollipop and they make that connection. I liked that because it was like the only thing that I emotionally engaged with in the movie, and I was like, oh, that's like, it's really constructed. It's really obviously constructed to have that character arc moment. but it was like a moment of sweetness, and I was like, oh, I like that, and that was my favorite moment.
Well, that's fair. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, I thought this movie was too silly for me. I kind of tuned out, but I recognized that it was well done. And that's me.
All right. Well, we're gonna redo the episode in Cantonese, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're gonna have you do the translation, type it in.
Yep. You get to type in Cantonese subtitles.
We had somebody on an episode comment, I think in Cantonese, like where are the subtitles? And I did some digging. On this, and I found out that a lot of our vast amount of views come from like people watching Chinese movies on YouTube, and then our stuff gets recommended somehow. I have no idea why.
Like they watch like full movies on YouTube when you find like
it's like it'll be recommendations that exist on like the sidebar, I think, of full Cantonese movies, and they'll be like, oh, you like that? Well, maybe go watch the Man on Fire review from these English nerds.
In America.
What? In America.
Oh, that's great.
I have
That's
no
so
idea
interesting.
how the algorithm works.
Papa algorithm just fucking throwing us for a loop.
Well, when we finally have merch, ladies and gentlemen, you'll find it on Alibaba, apparently.
I don't think any of them listen past 30 seconds.
That was such a solid joke. Oh,
Jeff approves.
Oh,
Get
man.
Jeff's stamp of approval.
Yeah, but you know, like I was saying before we warmed to the mics, this is not a movie that you're supposed to dig into. Nah, it's just I wanted us
It's
to have
not a
little fun
movie
this
that you
week.
unpack. Yeah, you're not being like, what are the themes?
I worked 6 days in a row this week, and I just didn't feel also like deep diving into a movie after just being like slogged with cooking work. So I was like, I want to watch something that's fun and lighthearted and it's going to make me smile. And not Willem Dafoe slamming hog into someone.
That is light and cheerful.
Kid babies falling out of the window and you seeing them land.
Oh, you're gonna love next week's episode.
I'm not, but yeah.
You are. It's great.
It's funny. I liked Antichrist, so I guess maybe.
I think that's a good point, though, that you bring up, Jeff, that maybe we don't talk about enough on the Reel Weirdos is, I mean, even Jesse, you brought it up a little bit, is like the headspace that you're in at the moment, or even just like based on the week or the month you've had, can really color and affect like the experience of the film. So yeah, when you've gone through, you know, Antichrist, Downfall, Come On, and then you kind of already have like a shitty week, this is the perfect movie to watch. If like you're breaking up with someone and you're eating your tub of ice cream, you know, put on this movie.
Definitely.
Yeah, I had the opposite. I was like, I had a really chill week, and I was like, I want to really deep dive into stuff. I was like really digging these movies that were like really getting into the minutia of an unpacking. And I'm like, was loving that. So that's why next week we're doing Titan. But that's also the beauty of the roundtable format here in terms of choices, right? Like you can, when it's your turn, you can do whatever you want.
I was sitting in traffic and I was like sweating and it was all hot, and I decided I need to choose Falling Down, right? I need to show them this movie.
That's so perfect.
That's my way of catharsis, by the way, people. I'm not going to go out myself and go on some rampage across LA.
I hope not.
That episode has my single favorite Reel Weirdos moment ever.
Yeah?
The siren?
Yep, the siren.
Oh, yeah. We didn't even call attention to it. Yeah.
When Alex is giving this like intense, beautifully worded description of his feel of LA, and then you just hear those sirens go by. It's just, mwah, it's perfect.
It is absolute perfection. And you know what? So's this episode. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, baby. Tight as a drum.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's us, the Reel Weirdos, 2.5 white men with English degrees talking about movies for way too goddamn long. And that's Kung Fu Hustle. Check it out at your local theater. And we'll see y'all next week for Titan and Kung Fu My Hustle.
All right. Enjoy your croissants.
Chicka chaka chapo. Now our podcast is done, and we have to run. We know it is sad, but we had so much fun. Don't be bereft, Jesse, Alex, and Jeff. We'll be back real soon. The Reel Weirdos. We talk about movies for way too goddamn long. Bo 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 bo.